Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely day. And I hope it is lovely unto you too. And if it's not, don't worry about it. We are here to make it lovely. It's wonderful to host you again today on Coaching for Impact. Nadini Ocheng is my name. Oh, welcome. Good to see you.
And my name is Newton Siele. Thank you again for joining us, whether it's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, on TikTok. Welcome to Coaching for Impact, as we like to say, a life of happiness. And it's an honor to be here and to share with you.
So, Newton, why do I need a mentor or a coach?
And that's a good point. When I was thinking about this topic, I was thinking about a football team and I was saying, what's the purpose of a coach? Mm-hmm. What does a coach do? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's interesting because a coach is somebody who is there with you in the field. Mm-hmm. It's somebody who's there to be able to help you and guide you with the expectation that the coach has more experience, more knowledge, and more expertise. Mm-hmm. So do you need a coach in life? I would say absolutely yes. Mm-hmm. Unless you are born with experience, and I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody that was actually born with experience. And coaches are there in person. A mentor, on the other hand, sometimes might be indirect because you could be aspiring, and so you shadow somebody who is a mentor. So a mentor might both actually, physically be present in your life, or it might be somebody that you just aspire to be like. And so you read about them, you follow them, as we like to say, on their platforms. You read about their books, their articles, because they represent the aspiration that you have. And yes, I believe also it's very important.
So in other words, Newton, what you're saying is that there is no self-made man.
As I said, I'm here to say any baby who is born with a manual that when, that first cry that they already have a manual with them that this is what I'm supposed to do. I think everybody comes in and those of us who've been ahead of us are the ones that we aspire to be like. And so, I think it's very important to have a coach and a mentor, or at least one, if I can put it that way.
Okay. Okay. If someone would say, I have someone I've been looking up to, they are in the US. What would you tell such a person?
Well, so I don't know how frequently you're able to get to them. As I said, there are instances where there are people that you aspire. I've had people who say, for example, that they see Barack Obama as their role model or as a mentor. And so what they do is they dive into the books that have been written to try and read his mind, to understand how they think. They look at the articles, they look at their speeches, they look at their documentaries. So you listen to them. And in fact, one of the things that is highly encouraged, especially when you're looking at somebody that you aspire to be, is to, of course, listen to what they say and get to sort of, it's like getting into their brain, even which includes reading. But for me, why I still believe it's important to have a coach, I think there's no way you can really become good, even if you have an aspiration, or become or sharpen your soul, as we like to say, without getting that help for somebody who's been there before you, somebody who guides you, challenges you, and is able to really help you put things together, as we like to say, get your ducks lined. That's also the purpose of the coach. And in some instances, this is somebody who can be there for a certain period in your life. For some, actually, they've had coaches for as long as they've been in their career, some in terms of their spiritual life. And I think that's very important. Why? Actually, I'll throw this back at you. Why do you think people shy away from having a coach or a mentor in their lives?
I think, Newton, that's a good question, because from a coach myself, I'll tell you the misconceptions out there. So people tend to think that if you hire a coach, the coach does the work for you. That's a misconception, number one. In that I thought I'm paying you to think for me. So it's almost like they kind of change the responsibility the other way around. They fail to understand the way. I remember what you began with, a football coach. It's very important to have that picture in mind, that even though he's there, he doesn't get in the field to play, all right? But he's there to make his team play to the best of their ability. And I think for me, it's very important to think of it in that particular manner, in that if I'm going to have a coach, the reason for that is because I know that I have potential. And I think that's where people fail to understand. Is that, number one, I think from coaching perspective, we don't coach because you lack potential. So we don't coach for you to gain potential, all right? The assumption is that you already have potential within you, but you are not using the potential you have, or you are not maximizing it to the full benefit of what it can be. And so you get a coach in, and this coach then is able to put you on a journey, as you said, for you to get to fulfill the mandate of your life, to make sure that you empty yourself, to make sure that you give out the best you can, all right? Now, it also doesn't mean you can't fail, but as we refer back to football, even with a coach, the team still loses at time. But the team has a chance to go back to the drawing board and restructure and replan and know that we are going to approach the next situation differently. And I think for me, that's the importance of having a coach, because a coach will enable you to be able to put, as you say, your ducks
lined.
in
Very,
line.
very, very important. And for our listeners and viewers, please remember who is not a coach. So, and I agree with you. Number one is that somebody who is taking over your responsibility to do it on your behalf is not a coach. That could be an employee and you're paying them to do that, especially if you have money.
like that.
And number two, you cannot have a coach for somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about,
Yes.
right? So remember, if you are aspiring, whether it's in your personal, your career, or you want to get into community, the coach is somebody who understands that particular area, and that's why they've also, either they have an expertise based on experience, they have an expertise based on training, and so they will take you. And I must say that the relationship between the coach and the coachee remains, because I see people sometimes get confused. Can I have my spouse or my friend, somebody that I'm, let me, for lack of a better word, entangled with, whether it's in a good or a bad way, as my coach? Remember that also in itself is sort of a risk, because you want to have that clarity of relationship for the person that you have as a coach. And of course, more importantly, is that the coach must be able to hold you into account. So you must be having certain things that you have discussed, agreed that this is what we need to do, and you're able to have those KPIs being monitored during the coaching process. As I said, it could be for a season, it could be slightly longer than that. But it seems that people that have coaches and mentors tend to do better. Why is that?
Is because, number one, they have measures in place. You see, Newton, anything that is not measured cannot be achieved. I mean, you can't point your finger and say that this is what I've achieved if you have no mechanism to measure that thing. And what coaching does is that it helps you to be able to measure the steps you're taking, the things, rather the projections you have, are they realistic? Because the questions you meet in coaching are meant to help you make sure that the plan you have is realistic. Is it achievable? So that I don't have a plan in the skies while I can hardly fly. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So I'll only dream of reaching a place that I can never go to. And I think one of the things also, Dr. Newton, to put in place for us to understand is also, you mentioned about spouse. I think for me, I would say then spouse can be a good accountability partner if they are people who actually are pushing you towards being able to achieve your potential. They can make very good accountability partners. But about coaching, I don't think it's the best thing to do. It would always be wise for spouses to get different coaches. And I think that limits also, you know when you are talking to your spouse, and there are tough questions and there are things you're exposing about your life, you can imagine.
You might be blamed. I didn't achieve this because you didn't do this.
The session may turn out to do more harm, actually, than good. I think that's also important. But maybe the question, Newton, is, when you're looking for a mentor, what are the markers of a good mentor?
I think that's, it's a fantastic question. Now, number one is that somebody that mentors you has been there. Somebody that mentors you has maybe seen it. Somebody that mentors you has some knowledge about that which you want to be mentored in. And that's extremely important. If you have somebody who has not been there, doesn't have the knowledge or doesn't have the expertise also, then it becomes very difficult. And I know people have always asked, can I have a mentor for somebody that, even if I'm not able to get them, but I follow them, I shadow them? Yes. And I think that's why we also even push about the book club. I mean, you know about our book club. We've had it now for 7 years. And if I look at the books that we have done, I've never met Robin Sharma. I've never met Professor BJ Fobb. I've never met Maxwell. But every book that we have studied within that is a very strong mentorship. And for me, there's, that's one of the most easiest ways to say that, yes, actually, the people that I follow, the people that I read, are some of my mentors. The people that I listen to are some of my mentors. The people that I subscribe to are some of my mentors. So that's extremely important, especially when it comes to mentorship. And yes, just like coaching, you can actually have somebody that becomes your mentor that you get to see. Okay, as I said, coaching is very professional. So in coaching, there might be KPIs, there might be things you need to do. They know how to play the game. They have not only studied, but they've been certified. And that's very important.
Very true.
Because also I think what people tend to confuse is it possible to have a coach that's not certified, not trained? What are the risks of that?
I think for me the risks I think many. Number one is because if someone is not certified, then who are they accountable to? Because remember, if you're certified by the body that certifies the coaches, number one, you are answerable to them. They can withdraw your license. They can, deduct your points for you to, depending, because there is a place always where the coachee has a place where they are safeguarded. Because, when you talk about coaching, it can really be amorphous, as you've said. So when you have a place where the coaches themselves can be held accountable and the coachee is in a place of receiving value for their money, because there are so many things that people will rip you off. People will actually can lead you down the cliff. So you need to be certain that I'm getting the right coach for me. And I think also, Newton, to add on the same, is that many people who are not certified have confused between mentorship and coaching. So they do mentorship, but they normally communicate it as coaching. Because remember, in coaching, one of the key elements about coaching, number one, is they say that you are a relationship of equals. Now, this relationship of equals can either be that, number one, the coach is the manager of the session, but the coachee is the expert in the field. So you see that how that turns around. But when you talk about mentorship, you realize that the mentor is the expert in the field. All right, so the person being the mentee who is being mentored is a person who is learning the ropes of that particular field. All right, so I think it's very important for us to have those definitions in place, and for our viewers to understand that, in that when you're looking for a mentor, be clear, I'm looking for a mentor. If you're looking for a coach, you also need to be clear that you're looking for a coach. And I think the other question would be, Newton, is that I am a young person. I'm out there and I've heard about this thing today. How would you get that young person to look for a coach or a mentor?
That's a good point, because I was also thinking about that, and I want to address it from two aspects. Number one, usually when you have younger people that either are getting into their tertiary education or they've just finished their tertiary education and they want to get into the field of work, they obviously are in need of a coach, and sometimes they might not be able to afford it, or maybe they need a mentor and they can't afford. Remember, what we said is, to me, first and foremost, as we like to say in Swahili, mtakacha mvunguni sharti ainame. The biggest problem we have is people that do not acknowledge that they need to get mentorship and they need coaching. And it's not just enough to say, I think I need. You have to demonstrate, because even that relationship between the coach and the mentee, even for me, for the people that I either coach or mentor, it's their responsibility to be able to create the time to follow up on the actions, to be able to give an update. So that commitment must be there. But I want to come back to the aspect of cost, because for most of the younger people, nowadays we talk about either internship or mentorship opportunities. And those ones usually doesn't require a cost. So when you're looking for a mentor, you will not be asked to pay. There will be no need for a cost, but you have to be committed. You have to show that I really need to get this mentorship. And of course, you need to be able to get the person who is going to do that. But it's important, that said, that either the coach or the mentor is also available. It's always good to ask, I need you to mentor me in this, and this is what I will require. Will you be available? Because also there's no point of getting into a commitment or into a relationship of a coach or a mentor and a mentee or coachee, and yet you find that there are lapses in terms of availability of the coach or the mentor. That's extremely important. But for our young people, I believe, especially in the world that we live in today, that not having a mentor or a coach to me, I would say is one of those 1,001 ways to die, either career-wise, not physically, but career-wise, and in terms of progression.
Very true, because
Yeah.
the world is demanding. Right now, the age we are moving into is quite demanding. And so it calls for you to be prepared for it. And I think what coaching and mentorship does, it prepares you for life ahead of you. And I think also the other thing, as you have spoken so well about that, is that for me is just to add that in case you're looking for a mentor, you're a young person and you're looking for a mentor, you can keep writing unto us. We can try source around to get a mentor for you. For coaching, I'm available. I can do pro bono. If you're a young person, I can do pro bono for you. Newton.
No, thank you. Thank you, Pastor Dennis. I think that's important for our audience. And please remember, of course, that just by subscribing, by listening, by viewing on the Coaching for Impact, you are also getting, I believe, very good mentorship. And that's why we call ourselves Coaching for Impact. Which then brings me back. Is it possible, and I'm just thinking here, that for me, for example, maybe I have a mentor and I have a coach, and I realize that my friend is really losing direction, and I'd like to recommend, you know, sometimes you I want to tell my friend that I think you need a coach, by the way, or I think you need a mentor. How do you go about it to tell, you know, somebody who is close to you that I would really suggest that you get a coach or a mentor? Because sometimes that's a difficult conversation, especially if they don't see the need for a mentor or a coach in their lives.
Yeah.
How do you go about it?
The biggest challenge about coaching, Newton, is that you're not selling goods that are tangible. You are selling a service. And at times people, you know, there's a kind of service that you receive immediately and you see results. Coaching basically is a profession that puts the coachee to do the work. And unless that particular person is ready and willing to do the work, the coaching cannot work. And at times, you know, we can suggest. Suggesting is good, really, because one of the laws about coaching is that the person being coached must, first of all, be on board and agree that they want that particular coaching session. If they don't want it, there is nothing that can be done about them. And I think we talk about, when you talk about what you've talked about, we can literally see it, especially in a place of work, where you see someone has potential, but you know that this person, they are going to lose it at the end of the day. So you can suggest, or you can tell them to talk to a coach to basically evaluate whether they are able to accept the coaching themselves. So I think the only place that you can play Newton is being able to suggest, but telling them to go, it is up to them to make that particular choice, to choose whether they want a coach or a mentor in their lives. Yeah.
No, very important, especially now when we see a lot of youth that are out there, disgruntled and frustrated. And sometimes, you know, one of the things that they could actually do to change their lives is just saying, first and foremost, let me get a mentor. For me also, in my opinion, and I believe what has happened in the world today is that there are a lot of, you know, we talk about fake news, right? But there are a lot of distractions that can easily get a young person to get in the wrong direction. Sometimes it could be what looks like a very authentic, in our eyes, investment or plan
Bitcoin.
or project. Yes. No, or WorldCoin.
Hey, WorldCoin now.
And sometimes when you have somebody who is a mentor or you have somebody who is a coach, they are able to help you sometimes, you know, unpack some of these things and look at it critically. And the truth is, and I think that's why also we used to say wahenga wahenga walisema, and the reason why we said wahenga walisema is because wahenga waliishi miaka nyingi,
And they experienced.
Yes, and they experienced, and that really helps. It's important for our young people to be able to seek, and again we're just emphasizing, please find a coach, find a mentor, and have clarity about the path of the life that you want to be, you know, you want to pursue or you want to have. Well, at what point then do you say that I feel like I'm making progress with my coach or with my mentor?
Number one, chemistry. Am I having? Do I feel like we're having chemistry with my coach? Because according to the rules by ICF, if we don't have chemistry, you have the right to end basically our engagement. You have the right to say, no, I can't continue with this. I feel like you are not a good match for me. They use the word match. So you must be matching the other person for you to be able to coach them. The other thing is that I think it's believing and understanding that when you are engaging with your coach, number one is that there must be clear outlining of expectations. In that because if you don't have expectations, then how will you know if you have achieved them in that particular relationship? So it's important then for the person who is being coached, the coachee in this particular case, to exactly have that onboarding meeting with the coach and be able to put those markers in place and say, at the end of this is the expectation, this is where we should end up. So for this particular person, if you see you are not heading there and you're not making any headway, rather that seems like it's showing you that's where you're going, you're entitled to say this thing is not productive for me, and you walk away from it. Yeah, I know there's a cost implication. There's always, when a coach comes, he says maybe after the onboarding session, you realize there will be 3 sessions for us, I'll charge this amount. It's always an issue that you can go back to and discuss, say, this was not productive for me, and so I feel like maybe I should get some refund. That is if you paid beforehand, because there's also a risk of not paying and the client disappearing on you.
It's very true. And of course, I think also paying is a good commitment, right? Especially when you can be able to afford. But it should never be a reason that I cannot get a coach or a mentor simply because I cannot afford. And I think it really also captures, in essence, the vision that we have in terms of coaching for impact, which is really to reach out with a message to people that you can be able to get coached. It's only entirely up to you to find the time, to find the commitment, and stick to what is agreed to be able to really make a change in your life.
It's amazing to have you. It's amazing, again, to chat with you. And we are praying and believing that where you are at, you're strengthened to handle crisis. Have a good time and engage with us. Share, please, on the other platforms. Engage and get people to share with others. We love to have people be able to receive this good news that we are receiving from here. So have a good time. Bye-bye.